Ashton Jeanty wrapped up his collegiate career against Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl. Not great compared to his standards of what he did this regular season. 30 carries, 104 yards, 3.5 yards per attempt, 0 touchdowns. And that was really the main focus for Penn State. You really stopped Jeanty. You stopped the entire Boise State offense. And at some point, it was close. 17-14 was a score, and then they pulled away with a 31-14 win. Move on to the semifinals. Below face either Georgia or Notre Dame. And a lot of people are bashing Jeanty with this, say, oh, now this is the first time he has to play a real team, can't face, community colleges teams or, Division III teams or whatever it may be. But I don't think we should just focus on this one game. Yeah, he's overrated. He's not the guy he was throughout the whole season because of the strength of schedule and the teams he faced. Jeanty is still a phenomenal player, and he's going to be a phenomenal prospect, and he will go high in the draft, in my opinion. And I don't think we should just point to this one game and just say that's who he is, and forget about the whole season of what he's done. It's been all-time great. With the stats included with the bowl game, Ashton Jeanty finishes with over 2,600 yards rushing, 29 touchdowns. He also adds 138 yards receiving, 1 touchdown. So you have over 2,700 yards in total yards, 30 total touchdowns. Absolutely phenomenal. Again, last night's performance wasn't great, but once again, Boise State really doesn't have other great pieces around that team besides Jeanty himself. And no doubt Boise State will take a step back next year once he's gone from the program. But I do view Jeanty as a top 15 prospect and going in the top 15 in the draft. We'll see how the combine plays out and where he measures, especially in the 40-yard dash. Maybe he drops a little bit. Maybe he goes a bit higher because of it. But no doubt he is the undisputed running back one in this draft class, and he will go high in this one. And I do have the Pro Football Focus Draft Simulator on here to show you the big board and where they have him positioned as of right now. And we're going to go over a few teams that I believe can select Jeanty, or I could see them taking him. So the first one is going to be very, very high. I think this is unlikely, but it's certainly a possibility, is the Cleveland Browns, in my opinion. You look at Nick Chubb the last couple years, of course, getting up there in age, but most importantly, the injuries he suffered. Broken foot this season, and obviously knee injury last year. 2 devastating injuries, no doubt, and he's up for a contract. They're going to have to re-sign him. It doesn't make sense to bring back Nick Chubb because of that. It's unfortunate to see. It sucks to see what happened as of late for Nick Chubb because he is a great running back. For really outside the last 2 years with the unfortunate injuries, he's been phenomenal. He's been one of the best running backs in the NFL, in my opinion. But it doesn't make any sense for the Browns to bring him back, and it makes it even tougher with the Deshaun Watson contract when you're going to look at the cap issues down the line in 2025 and 2026. Doesn't make any sense, or 2027 too as well. You have to get cheaper, and you have to get cheaper talent on these rookie contracts. And Ashton Jeanty looks like that. I think for the most part, you have to focus on the offense in this draft. So McMillan can be a possibility at 3rd overall, but I think Tennessee may be a spot for him because they also are in dire need of a wide receivers as well for the Tennessee Titans, or maybe they'll draft a quarterback 2nd overall if they, well, they may be. It all depends on how they feel about Will Levis. But regardless, I think offense is a major key for the Browns. It has to be a win-now piece. It has to be something to try and convince players like Myles Garrett to stay and show they're not going through a rebuild. They still are a playoff caliber team. Jeanty does bring that to this offense that's dire need of elite talent. They also lost Amari Cooper, so I think it makes sense bringing someone in there. But most importantly, just moving off of Nick Chubb and not really having other great options outside of that. Could you take the chance in a 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round on a running back? Sure, that's certainly a possibility, but they don't come close to, as right now, Ashton Jeanty as a prospect coming out in the draft. So next one, maybe a little bit, of a strange one. I do have the Jacksonville Jaguars. This year, Travis Etienne has really taken a big step back. You look at Tank Gibbsy, he has more yards and more touchdowns than him, really slowly taken over that lead role for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and maybe they want to continue with that next year where Bigsby is the number 1 running back. But it just seems like Etienne really hasn't lived up to what he was in college, and maybe that's fitting for Trevor Lawrence as well. Both of them coming from Clemson, not really living up to expectations. But it just, again, it looks like slowly and surely he is losing that role for Jacksonville. Last year he was over 1,000 yards. Towards I think the second half of the season he really played well, or in a stretch last year he really played well. But as of right now, it's a completely different story. I could see Jeanty on this offense once again, just trying to add another piece for Trevor Lawrence and trying to build this offense as well. There was some talks about just looking at the wide receiver position as well, with Christian Kirk maybe potentially being gone and so forth. I mean, they had a great, amazing piece in Brian Thomas Jr., who's played phenomenal, probably the wide receiver one in this rookie class as of right now statistically. Gabe Davis, that contract has not really worked out too well. Is basically having the same issues as he did in Buffalo with the just very up and down play. But I think just adding an electrifying piece, similar to what I said about the Cleveland Browns, just trying to add a big piece like that for the Jacksonville Jaguars could be huge with that one. If you want to stick with Travis Etienne for that one more year of his rookie year before his 5th year option, sure, it's that's certainly a possibility. If you want to say Gibbsby, like I said, if you want to stick with them, I can understand that. But just looking at that running back position, struggling a little bit with that, that could certainly be a place that I could see him going. Maybe not maybe not like the most popular pick, or just kind of a really dark horse, or just a shot in the dark for me picking the Jaguars. But in a certain way, I can see that happening. Is him going to Jacksonville 5th overall. So next one is going a little bit further down on the draft board. We are going to the Dallas Cowboys. When I look at between 6 and 12, it doesn't make any sense for the most part for teams to draft them. The Carolina Panthers just signed Chuba Hubbard. They drafted Jordan Brooks. The Jets have Breece Hall. The Raiders, I'm sure, are going to be trying to get a quarterback, trying to trade up to get Cam Ward. Even if they don't get Cam Ward, I don't know if Ashton Jeanty is the go-to option for that. It could potentially be, but I think they have bigger priorities than just Jeanty. Cleveland, I mean, same thing too. I think offensive line, or sorry, not Cleveland, Chicago. Offensive line, I think is the big focus point with that. Same thing too. They have Alvin Kamara. 49ers, Christian McCaffrey, Colts, Jonathan Taylor. So you look at from 6 through 12, doesn't really make too sense. Maybe again, the only outlier maybe is the Raiders, but I have the Cowboys, no doubt. It's been horrible this year. I mean, they just released Ezekiel Elliott, not saying he was going to be the running back one, but obviously that experiment, part 2 of Elliott with Dallas has not panned out. And you look at just what else they have on that team, not really too impressive. I think it's a team that's really starving for that rookie, once again, rookie Ezekiel Elliott. They had that electrifying, play style and the burst of speed. It just, they don't have that right now. It's unfortunate, and then I think really this offense needs a big jump. You have CeeDee Lamb. You just gave him a contract extension. You gave Dak Prescott a contract extension in the offseason as well. And the running back game, I think you really need that. Rico Dowell, good players, having a much better season than what we expected. He has over 1,000 yards rushing, 1 touchdown. But it just, once again, why I said for the other positions, there's just so much bigger upgrade that you can get to from that. I'm sure Dowell isn't the thought process of like this is going to be a future player down the road. He is going to be a cornerstone piece on this offense. We're going to move down the line. I don't view that. It's just a kind of a plug and play player. Couldn't really get 1-1 this year. Could have got Derrick Henry, but typical Cowboys fashion, they don't want to give out the money, and they think they have all-star talent on their team already. We see that hasn't really panned out. So Jeanty is a massive upgrade. Maybe you get another early Ezekiel Elliott 2.0 with this offense. I think they just need something. And the running game was horrendous. It is. I mean, you look at it. Outside of Dowell with 1,000 yards rushing, it's abysmal. I mean, it's with Ezekiel Elliott being off the roster, which I think he had I think less than 300 yards rushing, at least around there. It's abysmal. I mean, you look at Turpin, 80 yards rushing. CeeDee Lamb has 70 yards rushing. Prescott has 54 yards rushing. So once you take now with Ezekiel Elliott being off the roster, there is not a single person outside of Dowell that has over 100 yards rushing on the year. I mean, that's scary. Now, I would have no problem if you moved Dowell to the running back 2 and you have him as a complementary piece to Jeanty. That would make more sense because of, again, just having a solid 1-2 option. But no doubt, even for a lot of people, it says like Cowboys looks like the go-to, maybe the number 1 choice for Jeanty to go to, and the perfect spot for him is available. The Cowboys have the biggest need at running back outside of Cleveland, in my opinion, but they have bigger issues at 3rd overall to go with. So Dallas seems like maybe the top choice if you had to rank these in order for best place to go to. The next one I'm going to go to is right after them, the Arizona Cardinals. I know you signed James Conner to a 2-year extension, but again, he is getting up there in age, 29 years old. It's, teams get a little bit worried. Even though they gave him a contract, doesn't mean that he's going to be staying there for the 2 years. They can quickly just move off him if they need be after a year. This is, again, I think they're slowly trying to build this offense back up. You have Marvin Harrison Jr. that some people are a little bit worried about, didn't have maybe the live up to the expectation in his rookie year that people thought. Maybe he would have certainly the numbers that Brian Thomas Jr. would have, but it's a starting point. You have Marvin Harrison Jr. there, you have Kyler Murray. There's also question marks with him as well. I think just once again, just adding a elite piece with Kyler Murray's running ability would make perfect sense and really elevate this offense, no doubt. This is, similar to what, it's basically the same MO, if I'm really saying, for the Browns, Jaguars, the Cowboys. It's just offenses that just really lack that explosiveness or really lack that offensive talent outside of one player that they have. And again, you can really point to all of them just having one good player, and outside of that, nothing special. And for the Cardinals, James Conner, again, great player, has done a good job in Arizona his 4 years there. Unfortunately, he did get hurt this past week in Week 17. So no doubt, that's a solid option if you want to stick with that. Gives you, a fringe 1,000-yard rusher per year. But I think, again, it's a huge upgrade right there from Ashton Jeanty, from James Conner. Gives you a different style, as well as just bringing in more talent at that running back position. There's no problem with having Conner and Jeanty coexist. We see that with the Detroit Lions and Montgomery and Gibbs. We saw it early on in Kamara's career with Ingram and Kamara. So it's not a big issue. It's not horrible having two good running backs in there, because I think if done right, it's a massive tool you have in your disposal to really go out there and be a perennial offense. Again, number one, maybe the outlier, you could say that with Ben Johnson, but Detroit Lions, again, with Gibbs and Montgomery, absolutely phenomenal. Both those guys put up massive numbers the last year and this year too. It's unbelievable, and you can have certainly that potential with Conner and Jeanty in this lineup with Arizona Cardinals, along with Kyler Murray's running ability, as well as pairing up with Marvin Harrison Jr. too. So I like that style. I think that'd be a very fun offense to look at. Have that big three in Arizona, so it makes sense. Next one is 2 spots down is the Bengals. Of course, Dolphins doesn't make any sense because they have A-Chain and Mostert, which I don't know what Mostert's future is going to look like. Just really having a down season with injuries, not really having a big role compared to what he was last year when he was the touchdown leader in the NFL. The Bengals look like a huge spot here. If he can fall outside the top 15, it's trying to replace Joe Mixon, and Zach Moss had a good solid season this year before getting hurt. He was doing a good job, but can you imagine having Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Jeanty on this offense? That would be amazing. We see what Joe Burrow is doing this year without really having a running back the back half of the season, and just having Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and numbers putting up basically MVP numbers similar to Lamar Jackson. Unfortunately, he's not going to get there if whether he makes it in the wild card or not. Doesn't seem like really a choice for this year, but he's playing phenomenal numbers up, and this is something that would be monumental to just put it. We talk about the big three with Arizona. This would probably be by far the best thing to do. Have Jamar Chase, Jeanty, and Joe Burrow on the same offense. That would be elite. That would be deadly, and all those guys would put up huge numbers. So that would be the dream scenario, I think, for Cincinnati Bengals. If a guy of Jeanty's caliber falls all the way outside the top 15 and goes to the 16th overall pick, as right now where they stand, absolutely phenomenal. It's kind of a pipe dream, but I think it's definitely a huge position to take him. Basically saying like just taking the best player available at that point, number 16, would be the right choice for them if it happens. And lastly, going a little bit further down, I think this is kind of the cutting point in my opinion. With it is the Denver Broncos. Again, you look at the rest, don't really need it. You have Bijan Robinson 17 at Atlanta, Kenneth Walker at 18 for the Seahawks, and you have Joe Mixon at 19 for the Texans. So adding someone like, again, basically same MO of what I'm talking about for the Denver Broncos, that'd be a huge help for Bo Nix and his development going to his sophomore season, where he's really starting to figure things out. Looks like in the second half of his rookie season, it make perfect sense to add another player like that as well. You have Cortland Sutton there. You have Mims as well. So it's starting to, it seems like that would be a huge piece of a huge help for Bo Nix and this offense to really take a stride into his sophomore season. And the running game isn't that great to begin with. Javonte Williams, unfortunately with injuries too, has not lived up to what we thought he was going to be coming out in college a few years ago. You look at Williams is the leading rusher at 485 and 4 touchdowns. You look at the backup to Jameel McLaughlin, if I pronounce his name right, 457, 1 touchdown. Bo Nix the third in rushing with 383 and 4 touchdowns. Abysmal for this offense, and having Jeanty of that caliber would skyrocket them. And really, again, I can't emphasize enough about the growth for Bo Nix in his sophomore season, when we've seen plenty of times of quarterbacks take a step back, and the biggest one is C.J. Stroud in his sophomore year. He has not lived up to what he did in his rookie year. Not trying to compare Bo Nix's rookie year to C.J. Stroud's rookie year, but we have seen the sophomore year team, our quarterback, struggle a little bit, and this would be immense help to add here. Again, similar to what I said for the Bengals, it would be the best player available. If he falls to 20, you immediately run up there and take him, because I don't think there's anyone else at that point, number 20, that's better than Jeanty at that point in the draft. And that's where I really see that the floor with it, really. As of right now, the ceiling is 3rd overall pick. As of right now with Cleveland, the bottom, the floor is 20th. So there are a couple teams I do have picked outside the top 15 that he could potentially go. Outside of that, I don't see him falling that much farther. I don't see him as a late first round pick. At most, he's a mid first round pick. I just don't see it with his caliber, unless something just bad happens in the combine. Again, the numbers don't look great, or whatever it may be, or injury happens. Hopefully, nothing. Knock on wood. Maybe he does fall to the late first rounds to a team that would absolutely love to take him. But at the bottom, the floor as of right now, I do see is 20. So I do have, 6 teams? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I do have 6 teams that have potentially have Jeanty on their draft boards. If they do fall, 4 of them in the top 15, 2 of them outside the top 15, 16 and 20 to be exact, with Cincinnati and the Denver Broncos. But again, let's not overshadow let's not use the Boise State game to overshadow what Jeanty did in his career. Absolutely phenomenal, elite player in the nation, and no doubt he will be spectacular in the NFL level. His average yards per carry did go down. It was 7.3 before, drops down to 7 yards even, but he is going to change wonders for a team who drafts him, no doubt. He is going to be electrifying depending on where he goes, and it's going to be a huge... It's gonna be big. If he goes 3rd overall, that's gonna be the highest since Saquon Barkley in 2018 when he went 2nd overall to the Giants. It's gonna be huge, and then I think he's a huge mystery piece of where he's gonna land, a wild card, I should say, in this year's draft. Everyone else seems, outside maybe the quarterback position, besides Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, maybe say Jalen Milroe, if he decides to enter this year's draft. Maybe he is a wild card too, depending on where he lands. But I think Jeanty is the biggest one here, because he can go all the way in the top 3 or in the top 20. It doesn't matter. But there's plenty of suits from plenty of teams that could take him. Again, if you want to add the Raiders in this situation, if they miss out on Cam Ward or whoever they're trying to go after, you could certainly look at that as well. Or if you want to really just stack the offense with the Cleveland Browns and replace DeAndre Swift, you can do that. I mean, the kind of list goes on and on with that. Or Miami Dolphins, if they just want to pair him up with A-Chain and have a similar suit of what I said with Montgomery and Gibbs. I mean, you can just go down the list, and you can add plenty of teams on here. And I think there's going to be a lot of suitors for them, but it really depends on who else is going to be available and the draft board while he's on there. If there's a bigger need, let's say Campbell, a tackle, is available for a team that desperately needs it, they're going to side with him. Or a wide receiver needy team, they're going to side with them. So no doubt it's going to be it's not going to come down to him himself, but whether who else is going to be on the board available with them, that's going to decide how far he falls in this year's draft.